going to take a second look at responsive design. So I'm going to use the demo file we used from the CSS and the responsive demo we did in class. And what I want you to take from this is to really think about looking at the elements on your site at the desktop level and noticing what happens when they hit the tablet or the mobile screen, and thinking through and finding a good way to alter that style to look better on those devices. So when we look at this screen here at a large laptop screen, this is how we've written our CSS so far. Everything looks good, everything looks nice. But as we start to get down into the tablet view, notice how really thin and skinny the content gets. It requires a lot of scrolling to get to. There's words here that are, or there's lines here with one word per line. That's not really great when we're reading things. And when we start getting into the phone sizes and small tablets, we really start to see some issues, right? So this unordered list here, so this list over here starts to break off of the div that it's inside of. This image of Old Main gets really tiny. The table is wider than the rest of the content. The menu gets stacked in sort of a weird way. So there's a lot of things to consider, and it seems like there's a lot of things to change, but it's really just finding out what styles need to be tweaked and doing so at the right screen level. So I'm going to start by doing tweaks at the tablet level. So we need to write a media query specifically to start when we reach the standard size for tablet screens. If you go into the Chrome Inspector and you use the responsive design tool here that looks like a little phone and a little tablet screen stacked on top of each other, you'll be able to change the screen size and see the width of the screen in pixels. So we see here that tablets are typically 768 pixels wide. So when we go to Atom and in our CSS, that is the first media query that we have to write. So I know down here in my responsive section of my CSS, I'm going to write in a media query. At media, we're writing this for screens, and a maximum width of 768 pixels. So this rule is only going to apply to screens 768 pixels or smaller. So the maximum width that these rules apply to is 768. So the first thing I'm going to do, if we look at the screen at a tablet view, is how skinny the content gets. We want to spread this out. Tablets, it's fine to go full width. It's not like a 27-inch iMac desktop. Full width is totally fine. We know from our CSS that we wrote for the desktop that we have the body set to 60% width. For the tablet, I want to do that width at 100%. So I'm going to target the body, and we'll change the width to 100%. And so now, at the tablet view, the site will spread all the way across the screen. And so now it looks about in the same aspect ratio as the desktop site did. It's just stretching all the way to the edges of the screen now. However, if we look at our HTML, you'll notice that I have this first sidebar written here, and I have a second sidebar written down here. What I want to have happen is when we get to the tablet view, instead of the sidebar actually appearing as a sidebar, I want it to show up later on just above the footer. And so what I've done here is I've written the first sidebar that I want to show normally, and I have a second sidebar that I want to show at tablet and mobile view, and I've hidden the second sidebar so it doesn't show typically in the browser. And I've put regular styles on the normal sidebar. But now I want to switch them when we hit the tablet view. So here in our media query for tablets, I can target the first sidebar, which is just class sidebar, and change its display to none, and it will not show up at the tablet view. So if we go back into Chrome and refresh, the sidebar is gone. Now we just need to make the new sidebar appear here before the footer, and to do that, we have to target .sidebar2 because it's been given the class sidebar2, display block, and block is just the standard way something displays. So refreshing that sidebar now appears as just a stacked bar down above the footer. So you can see here, as soon as we get bigger than the tablet size, the original sidebar comes back, but once we hit tablet, the new sidebar pops up. And now the good thing is these sort of styles that we've written at the tablet view, since they apply to screens 768 and smaller, a lot of the styles for the mobile screen have already been taken care of now. So if we go down to mobile large, the screen already goes 100% width. The old sidebar goes away because we don't typically like sidebars at the mobile view, and it shows up down there. So things still look good there. And in general, things look pretty good on this page at the mobile large. One thing that I immediately notice I want to change is the image, because the image is really, really small. So I'm going to start writing rules now for the large mobile screen, 425 pixels. So this has to go in another media query. So this here is the closing bracket for the tablet media query. So now I'll come in and write a second media query. So at media screen and max dash width 425 pixels. So these rules will only apply to mobile large screens and smaller. We don't have to write body width 100% again because it's already been taken care of by the tablet view. So here I'm going to target the image and change its width to 100%. 100% width images on mobile look really nice. We like to have those go all the way across the screen. So there's that. That looks better. That's a nice separation of content. And again, I'm not just changing it because I feel like it should be changed. I understand that at the mobile level, this is the kind of style that things look better at. If we were to just shrink the desktop size layout of our site to fit on a phone, it would look awful. It would look very, very tiny and small. It would probably look not like that. The text would be hard to read. So when you go into the mobile view, look at your text and see if it seems small to you. If it does, change the text when you get to the mobile view. If we come up and look at this image, you'll notice that there's some margin and some padding happening. So I have 2% padding on the right side of the image, and when we go into the mobile inspector, we can see that padding happening there, and it's actually pushing the entire site to be a little to the left, and we have this weird gap happening. But you can see here that when I'm in the mobile view, I can scroll left to right, and that's a big detector of something on the mobile view is too big or there's padding. So if we look here, I bet it's this padding right here on the image, because inside the image originally I had 2% padding set on the right. So if we set the padding right on the image to 0, that takes care of that, and I can no longer scroll left or right on the page. You can also see here that content is hard to read when the first line of text or the first letter of the text is right up against the side of the screen. It doesn't look super bad in the inspector, but if you were to actually visit this on your mobile phone, it gets a little hard to read. So I know I want to target the paragraphs that are inside of the content section of my HTML. So here, div class content and all the paragraphs inside of it. So at the mobile level, we'll target the div with the class content and the paragraphs inside of it. And I'll set the width to 95% and the margin to auto to make sure it's centered. And I know I want a little bit of margin on the bottom, just so there's a nice amount of space between the paragraphs. So doing that pulls in the text a little bit and makes it a little easier to read. So looking here at the menu, it looks fine at the mobile large level, but when we hit mobile medium and mobile small, it starts to stack in this weird way. So instead of having that happen, I'm going to have all four of them just stack on top of each other, centered in the middle of the screen. And so it might take some poking around and some messing with your styles to figure out exactly what you need to change. But I know that these list items need to be displayed differently. Right now we have them displaying in line. I want them to display as a list item. But since they're already set above to be centered text, we don't have to change that. All we have to do is tell them to display like list items, so it'll stack them on top of each other. And I'm going to put a little bit of padding on the top just so they don't sit right on top of each other. And so after doing that, they stack. That's going to be a little bit easier to handle on mobile. You can give it some more space if you need to, things like that. And when we come down into mobile small, that menu is not a problem anymore. So that's not a lot of media queries or a lot of styles I've written, but it's because I was thoughtful in what I was tweaking and thinking about how content should look on different screens. Again, I can't stress enough that it's not about taking your desktop screen and just making it fit on the mobile size. It's about understanding how a user is going to interact with that content on the site and how they should prefer to view it. So we don't typically like swiping left or right on web pages on mobile. So all of our things should be scroll up or down to get to. Pictures should go full width, but text shouldn't hit the edge of the screen. So just like we like those sort of design concepts at the mobile level, it's the same concept of we don't like line lengths to be too long at the desktop level. So it just takes time. You have to look at your pages, every single page at every size screen, and see when something goes wrong, figure out what it is using the inspector or looking through your code, and then writing new rules for it. Hopefully that can help you understand how important this is. You can honestly treat every screen as if you're writing a new web page from a design standpoint. So just because it's the same site doesn't necessarily mean at every screen everything has to look exactly the same. That's why we have the sidebar disappear at the tablet. That's why we have the menu change at the mobile level. So yeah, shoot me a DM if you have any more questions. You can come into office hours anytime for more help on this, but you have till next Wednesday to make revisions to your responsive, and you can get some points back on Project One for that.